1 month after losing 6 games straight, the Clippers are now on a 7-game win streak and look to continue rising up the West. The team has completely flipped a switch from laughingstock of the league to a genuine contender, and if you haven't been watching the Clippers, it would seem like a total surprise. But if you've seen a few games, as Clippers fans will tell you, the team is looking like they've figured things out. Now, of course, the main reason for all this starts with Kawhi Leonard going off on a tear these last few games. In the 10 games ending on December 17, he's averaged 29 points per game with 6.6 rebounds and 3.7 assists per game on 59% field goal percentage, while shooting 57% from 3 and 91% at the free throw line. That's a 50-40-90 shooting split. Now, to start the season, Kawhi was very slow and very lethargic, leading some uninformed fans to write him off for the season. But as every Clippers fan knows at this point, Kawhi always starts his seasons slow, so it was never really a question of if, but rather when he rounded into form. Now, just watching the games, you'll see there's Kawhi's kind of hit a different gear, especially on the shooting side. He's making a lot of shots that don't seem like they should go in, but they end up going in. Like there was the viral floater free from the Jazz game a week or so ago. That's just one example. But yeah, he's acting on offense and defense as well. In the game against the Warriors, he played some elite level defense on Stephen Curry, which limited him quite a bit in the clutch. So even though he's no defensive player of the year anymore, he's certainly still a top level defensive talent. Now, all that being said, Kawhi's not the only reason for the Clippers' win streak this month. There is, of course, the continuing play of Paul George, who in a previous video I said was the Clippers' best player. Now, of course, that I'm not going to say that was a cold take, but when I made the video, it was true. Now, not so much because of Kawhi, of course, but PG is still contributing very well. If we look at his last 10 games, we get 18 points per game on 42% shooting, but 39% from three-point range, as well as 90% free throws. But PG slowed down a little bit, especially after he appeared to have an injury a couple weeks ago, but he's been back on the court. He only missed a game. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, though I don't think it's a long-term injury. But the next major reason for the Clippers' success, and I think I'm actually underrating it here by putting it third, is the rise of the James Harden system. Now, when Harden first arrived to the Clippers, the team did go on their 6-game losing streak, which, as I said, made them the laughingstock of the league, especially after Harden made his comments about being the system. So yeah, that definitely went viral for the wrong reasons. But in truth, Harden has a point. He is a system in himself, and that 6-game losing streak was really just the team getting used to him playing and implementing said system. At this point, he's running the whole show, with his methodical pace and high basketball IQ, letting him make all the right decisions on the court, whether that be finding an open man like Kawhi or Paul George, or looking to score himself, or using the threat of his shot to score himself, or running a pick and roll with someone like Zubac, who's the Clippers' starting center, and who's forming an elite two-man game with Harden. Now, I can't really understate the effect that Harden's had on the Clippers. I've watched the team for the past few years, mainly because Paul George is my second favorite player, and they've always lacked a true point guard. Well, they've had players like Reggie Jackson and Russell Westbrook, who are point guards, but they're more scoring-focused point guards than true playmakers like Harden is. Especially at this point in his career, Harden has really taken a playmaking-first approach, which works beautifully in giving the Clippers' top players, Kawhi and Paul George, a lot less to do on ball. They're not isoing as much anymore. They're not running as much isolation plays, which leads to a lot less dead possessions, which happens so often in recent years with the Clippers. Harden's system, as we're calling it now, has really rejuvenated the team. I've always thought he was an underrated player. Well, as underrated as an MVP level player can be. He does have his faults, like with the numerous trade requests, but I think he's gotten a bad rap, and I plan to have a very long video coming out specifically about sort of a defense of James Harden, but that's for next month. Also, besides the Clippers' main three players, they're getting a lot of contribution from pretty much every rotational player. There's Russell Westbrook, who shines off the bench these days. There's Norman Powell, who's a reliable scoring option right off the bench as well. There's Terrence Mann, who's a full-time starter now and really brings a lot of energy to that starting lineup. He's always hustling, he's active on defense, and he's just a solid wing option to put along Paul George and Kawhi in the starting lineup. Daniel Tice has been a decent backup center. I should say backup center, because he was signed specifically to cover for Mason Plumlee, who got injured last month. But he's been doing great, as well as Amir Coffey and also rookie Kobe Brown, who hasn't had a huge impact, but he's been getting better and better over the last few games. Also, since last month's losing streak, Coach Ty Lue has really gotten a hold of his lineups and his rotations, which I've noticed makes for a lot less small ball lineups, even though he still does use them. But whereas in the losing streak, he didn't make much use of someone like Zubac, for example. These days, he's very much keeping a big in more often. I'm not going to say he always keeps Zubac or Tice in the lineups, but definitely he seems to have found an idea of what works. And also Ty Lue is just an elite coach in general, so with him it was always a question of when he would figure out how to balance all these great players he has. Now, of course, this win streak will end eventually, but I think the Clippers have a great chance of extending it for a few more games. Their next three are the Mavericks, Thunder, and Celtics. And two of those, the Mavericks and Thunder games, are road games. So if they can get a few wins there, then you really know that this team is serious. Especially if they can beat the Celtics. But yeah, the Clippers are good. And to make a long story short, the NBA community is very reactionary. We see a lot of very hot-headed takes in regards to long losing streaks, or really anytime disaster happens for a team. But especially early in the season, there's always time to come back. And I think that's something we as basketball fans have to keep in mind. In any case, if you like this video, please, like it and subscribe for more. And yeah, I'll have more coming up real soon. Thanks so much, and I'll see you around.